Friends, this story is about a 22-year-old beautiful and young widow, SP Madame Ishita Verma. Her husband had died in a road accident. On a friend's advice, she kept a 14-year-old young boy in her house as a servant. With time, the boy's talks and habits started to feel like those of her late husband, Ayan Verma. That is why Madame Ishita began to like the boy. One night around 1 o'clock, Madame Ishita called the boy into her bedroom. Then what happened was something many desire, but not everyone gets in their destiny. It felt as if the boy had received the key to fortune in his hands. Now he no longer needed a wife or money worries. Every one of his wishes started to be fulfilled, and money began to come to him while sitting at home. Actually, what was it in this boy that Madame Ishita liked so much that she became bound to fulfill his every desire? To know this, listen to this story till the end. Friends, on the outskirts of Indore city, there stood an old bungalow like a haveli. In the yard was an old neem tree. On the walls were marks of time, and the wooden door made a creaking sound in the light breeze. All of this told the story of the loneliness of that house. In that silent and deserted bungalow lived SP Ishita Verma. At just 22 years old, she had become known throughout the district for her talent, courage, and strict attitude. In her eyes shone the brightness of justice, and on her face was such charm that anyone would pause for a moment upon seeing her. But 3 years ago, in a police operation, her husband, DCP Ayan Verma, had become a martyr. Ayan was an honest and fearless officer, and his death had taken away the light of Ishita's life. She hid her sorrow in her heart, drowned herself in her duty, and rose to become the youngest and strictest SP in the district. She lived alone in this big bungalow. Many times her parents told her to move into a comfortable flat in the city. But for Ishita, every wall, every room of this house carried Ayan's memories. That is why she did not want to leave. Every morning she put on her uniform and went to the office. Until evening she remained busy with cases and files, and late at night she returned tired. But the moment she stepped inside the bungalow, deep silence would weigh heavy on her heart. One evening, while she was standing by the window watching the sound of rain, her old friend Inspector Sayanti came to meet her. While drinking tea, Sayanti said seriously, "Ishita, you should keep a servant. The housework will be managed and you will feel less lonely." Sayanti laughed and added, "The housework will be taken care of and your heart will also feel lighter." At first Ishita did not agree, but finally, after Sayanti's repeated insistence, she gave in. A few days later, one afternoon, Sayanti herself brought a boy to her bungalow. The boy was 14 years old, lean and thin, but with a slightly strong body, bright eyes, and an innocent yet confident smile on his face. His name was Vivek. Vivek came and gave a salam, and then slowly stood in the yard of the bungalow. On his feet were worn-out slippers. In his hand was a small cloth bag, and in his eyes was such peace as if this place was not unfamiliar to him. Ishita kept him at work. Now he cooked, cleaned the house, looked after the garden, and handled other small chores. But one thing felt strange to Ishita. Vivek did every task so cleanly and perfectly as if this house had been his for many years. Especially when he made tea, its smell and taste were exactly like the tea Ayan used to like. At first, Ishita thought of it as a coincidence. But with time, Vivek's small habits started to surprise her. Like he always placed Ishita's favorite books on the shelf exactly the way Ayan used to keep them. One night Ishita wrote something in her diary. The next morning, she saw the diary was open on the same page, as if someone had read it at night. Now a question started to rise in her mind. Was this boy really just an ordinary servant? Or was there some big mystery hidden behind it? One night, when heavy rain was falling and Ishita was returning from the office, the bungalow's electricity had gone due to storm and rain. She lit a lamp and opened the door and saw Vivek standing with a candle in his hand, as if he knew that she would arrive at that time. Seeing Ishita, Vivek said slowly, "Ma'am, you are completely drenched. Let me make tea for you." Ishita looked into his eyes, that depth, that brightness which once was in Ayan's eyes. For a moment her heart began to pound strongly. She became serious and said in a strict voice, "Vivek, you want to tell me something, don't you? Tell me the truth. What is the matter?" Vivek lowered his eyes for a moment, then with a light smile said, "Ma'am, I am just your servant. Don't worry, I am bringing tea now." The next day, Ishita called Sayanti to the bungalow. With a cup of tea in her hand, Ishita said to Sayanti, "Sayanti, I think this boy Vivek is not an ordinary servant. His behavior, his way of making tea, his style of talking, everything reminds me again and again of Ayan. Am I going crazy?" Sayanti laughed and tried to avoid the matter, but Ishita's suspicion had already grown deeper. She said to Sayanti, "You check Vivek's full background. I want to know the truth." After a few days, Sayanti brought the report. About Ishita, no special record of him was found. Aadhaar card and other details, but no earlier record exists. As if this boy suddenly appeared from somewhere. Sayanti further said, "Maybe he really is just an ordinary boy, but if you doubt, then we can investigate more deeply." Ishita nodded in agreement, but the knot in her heart did not loosen. That night Ishita sat in her bedroom looking at old photographs. In one photo, she and Ayan were smiling on their wedding day. Ayan had given a special ring to all close people, on which the letter S was engraved in small font. That ring Ishita always kept in a special part of her diary. But when she opened the diary, the ring was not there. Ishita's heart seemed to stop for a moment. How could it disappear? Did Vivek take it, or is someone secretly coming and going in this house? Ishita's mind went blank. The next evening she called Vivek into the drawing room. In a strict voice she said, "Vivek, a ring has gone missing from my diary. Do you know anything?" Vivek answered in a calm voice, "Ma'am, I did not take anything, but if some valuable thing of yours has gone missing, then tell me. I will help to search." In his voice there was a strange truthfulness, but Ishita's suspicion did not lessen even a little. That night a message came on Ishita's phone from an unknown number. "Ishita, you are asking too many questions. Leave Vivek, otherwise both your chair and your life will be in danger." The color of Ishita's face faded. This was a threat, and in it, Vivek's name was clearly written. Was Vivek really some danger, or was someone trying to scare her? Ishita immediately called Sayanti and told her about the message. Sayanti instantly said, "Ishita, this is a serious matter. I am sending a team. Until then, you keep an eye on Vivek." But now Ishita's mind was completely tangled. Again and again Ayan's face was floating before her eyes. Was Vivek really Ayan, or was it only her illusion? The next day Ishita saw Vivek watering plants in the garden. On his left hand an old ring was shining on which something was engraved. Ishita's heart started beating fast. Was this that ring? She called Vivek and asked, "Where did you get this ring?" Vivek smiled lightly and said, "Ma'am, this was my mother's, an old memory." But in his eyes was a strange spark which made Ishita's heart beat even faster. Now Ishita's mind was completely focused on uncovering Vivek's mystery. She wanted to know who really was this boy, and did he have some connection with Ayan's death? But she also knew one wrong step could take her life. That ring had deepened Ishita's suspicion even more. Was it really Vivek's mother's keepsake? Or was it that ring which Ayan had given her many years ago? Ishita decided not to rush. She would silently keep an eye on Vivek. Her police training was warning her again and again, but one corner of her heart was still searching for Ayan's shadow in Vivek's eyes. The next morning, Ishita was sitting in her office when Sayanti gave the initial report about Vivek's background. Ishita: Vivek's record is clean, but there is one strange thing. His Aadhaar card and other documents are only 2 years old. Before that, no record exists. As if he suddenly appeared from somewhere. Ishita quietly listened to the report, but her eyes were on an old file kept on the table, the file connected with Ayan's death. She said slowly, "Sayanti, give me this file." Maybe some detail has still escaped my eyes. At night, when Ishita returned to the bungalow, Vivek was busy in the kitchen. Seeing her, he smiled and said, "Ma'am, today I made your favorite Rajma Chawal." Ishita's heartbeat became intense. Rajma Chawal was Ayan's favorite food. She looked at Vivek but said nothing. During dinner, she asked Vivek, "Vivek, where did you live before? Tell me something about your family." Vivek put down the spoon and said in a slow voice, "There is nothing special in the story. I am from a small village. My parents passed away when I was a child. Now I am alone." In his voice there was a hidden sorrow, but Ishita felt he was hiding something. She ended the talk there, but in her mind decided she would reach the real truth of Vivek. That night Ishita opened Ayan's case file again. It was written that Ayan was part of a high-profile operation, but his dead body was never found. Police had assumed he died, but Ishita's mind always suspected that Ayan's death was not so simple. In the file, there was another shocking detail. On the night of the operation, another person was also present, but his statement was incomplete. The name was not written, only a code name, Shadow. Ishita's head began to buzz. Could Shadow be Vivek, or was he hiding an even bigger mystery? She immediately called Sayanti. "Sayanti, find out about the witness in Ayan's case who was named Shadow. I want every detail about him." The next day, Ishita was busy at her office when Sayanti sent an old photograph. It was from Ayan's police training days where he was standing with his colleagues. In the photo, one face shocked Ishita. It looked like Vivek. Ishita's heartbeat grew intense. Was it really Vivek or a trick of the eyes? In the evening, returning home, she saw Vivek watering plants in the garden. Going closer, she showed the photo and asked, "Is this you?" For a moment, Vivek's face became stiff. Then he smiled lightly and said, "Ma'am, that is not me. Maybe someone who looks like me." But in his eyes there was a flash of fear which could not be hidden from Ishita. That night another message came to Ishita's phone from an unknown number. "Ishita, you have come too close. Leave Shadow, otherwise your bungalow will become your grave." A shiver ran through Ishita's body. Shadow, the same name that was written in the file. Now the question was, what was the connection between Vivek and Shadow? And was Vivek really not Ayan? Ishita immediately showed the message to Sayanti. Sayanti said seriously, "Ishita, they want to scare you. But if Vivek is really Shadow, then he is hiding some big mystery. We must put pressure on him." Ishita said slowly, "No, Sayanti, if Vivek is truly Ayan, then I don't want to scare him. And if he is someone else, then first we need sure proof." The next morning, Ishita called Vivek into the bungalow's living room. Her voice was strict. "Vivek, no need to hide anymore. Speak clearly. You are Shadow, right? And how did you know Ayan?" Vivek looked into her eyes for a moment, then lowered his head and said, "Ma'am, you are misunderstanding. I am not Shadow. I am only your servant." But in his voice there was a slight tremble. Just then the bungalow's door knocked loudly. When Ishita opened it, Sayanti was standing there with a file in her hand. She gave the file to Ishita and said, "This is Shadow's record. You see this, Ishita?" Ishita opened the file, and at the very first picture, her heart froze. It was Vivek's picture. He was standing silently, with a strange sadness in his eyes. Ishita took a deep breath and said, "Vivek, no more lies. Who are you? And what happened with Ayan?" Vivek let out a long sigh and said slowly, "Ma'am, I will tell you everything. But before that, you have to come with me." He pointed towards the back of the bungalow, where there was an old storeroom. Ishita's heartbeat grew intense. Was Vivek really Ayan, or was it a trap? In his words, there was a hidden mystery, which raised both fear and the burning desire to know Ayan's truth. Ishita looked once at Sayanti, who was still silently flipping through the papers of the file. Sayanti said seriously, "Ishita, don't go alone. I will come with you." But Ishita shook her head gently. "No, Sayanti, I must trust Vivek. If he is truly Shadow, then maybe he can tell me Ayan's truth. You wait outside, and if something goes wrong, wait for my signal." Sayanti unwillingly agreed, but while leaving, she put her hand on her pistol and looked at Vivek, whose face now had not fear but a strange sorrow. Ishita said, "Let's go," and followed behind Vivek towards the old storeroom at the back of the bungalow. The storeroom's old wooden walls and broken windows spoke of many years of loneliness and waiting. Vivek unlocked a lock and pushed the door open. Inside, dust, dirt, and rotten smells spread everywhere. He took out a small torch from his pocket and pointed inside. "Ma'am, here," he said, moving towards an old wooden box. Ishita stepped carefully, one hand resting on her service revolver. Vivek opened the box. Inside were some old papers, an old laptop, and a small lockbox. He pushed the lockbox towards Ishita and said, "Open this. Inside is your entire truth." Ishita hesitated and took the box. Its lock was closed with a password. "What is the password?" she asked. Vivek said slowly, "Your and Ayan's wedding date." Ishita's heart began to pound loudly. With trembling hands she entered the password, 15,621, and the lock opened. Inside there was a diary with Ayan's name written on it. Ishita opened the diary. It was in Ayan's own handwriting. The pages said that he was investigating a large drug and arms racket, in which some high-ranking police officers and businessmen were involved. On the last page it was written, "If something happens to me, then tell Ishi that I always loved her. Shadow will keep my truth alive." Ishi's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Vivek, who was standing silently. "Vivek, you are Shadow, aren't you? And you knew Ayan. But why didn't you say all this before?" Her voice carried both anger and fear. Vivek took a deep breath and said, "Ma'am, I am Shadow. I was Ayan's junior. That night when the explosion happened in the warehouse, I was there. Ayun told me his plan. He said if something happened to him, then I must keep his truth alive. But I could not save him." His voice was trembling. Ishita held the diary close to her chest. "So Ayan is dead." Tears rolled down her eyes. Vivek lowered his head. "Ma'am, I don't know. After that night there was no sign of Ayan. But I have heard the people of the racket are still afraid that he may be alive. That is why I came to you. I started working at your bungalow so that I could protect you." Ishita's mind tangled in confusion. If Vivek was Shadow, then maybe he was telling the truth. But in his eyes the shadow of Ayan and the mystery of that ring still remained unsolved. Just then a sharp sound came from outside the storeroom, the sound of glass breaking. Ishita and Vivek immediately drew their revolvers. Ishita signaled Vivek to stay behind. In the bungalow's garden a man was standing, dressed in black hood, a shining knife in his hand. Sayanti had her pistol aimed at him. But suddenly the man vanished into a cloud of smoke. Ishita looked at Vivek in anger. What was that? Vivek, have you trapped me? Vivek quickly said, Ma'am, trust me. These are the people who killed Ayan. Now they are after you because you have found the diary. Sayanti held Ishita's hand and said, Ishita, don't take any more risk. This diary will stay with me. I will take it to headquarters. You and Vivek will come with me. Ishita said in a strict voice. No, Sayanti. If Vivek is telling the truth, then I must expose this racket for Ayan. That night, another unknown message came to Ishita's phone. Ishita, you have seen the diary. Now your time is ending. Tomorrow night at 1 o'clock, come alone near the old warehouse. Ishita's heart filled with anger and pain. It was the same warehouse where Ayan had died. Was this the last chance for truth or another trap? She showed the message to Vivek. Vivek said in a serious voice, Ma'am, they want to finish you. But if you want to go, then I will go with you. Ishita looked into his eyes. There was the same spark, just like Ayan's. She nodded. All right, Vivek, but if you deceive me... She left the sentence unfinished and moved forward. Ishita's mind was now fully prepared for the face-to-face encounter that night. The very mention of the old warehouse brought Ayan's memories rushing back. But along with it came a burning determination to expose the racket that had taken his life. Her suspicion of Vivek still lingered, but the truth in his eyes and his Ayan-like behavior kept her from stopping. Ishita informed Sayanti about the message and gave strict orders. Sayanti, you and your team hide around the warehouse. Keep watch, but do not take any action until I give the signal. At 12:45 a.m., Ishita and Vivek headed toward the old warehouse. Light raindrops fell on their faces, and an eerie sense of fear hung in the air. The silence of the warehouse echoed with each breath. Ishita kept her service revolver at her waist, and Vivek had a small knife. Reaching the broken gate, Ishita said in a low voice, If this is a trap, Vivek, you will answer for it. Vivek looked at her solemnly. Ma'am, I am with you. No matter what, I will not let anything happen to you. There was a strange warmth in his voice, reminding Ishita of Ayan. Inside the warehouse, it was completely dark. Only a flickering lantern light could be seen at the moment. Ishita and Vivek slowly approached it. Suddenly, a cold, deep voice echoed. Ishita Barma, you are very stubborn. From the shadows, a tall figure emerged wearing a black mask. Behind him were two more men, both armed with guns. Ishita immediately drew her revolver and said firmly, Who are you? And what happened to Ayan? The masked man laughed harshly. Ayan made a mistake by crossing us, and now you're repeating that mistake. He took out a small device from his pocket. It contains all the information that Ayan had stolen. Drugs, arms, all our secrets. But now the data is back with us. And you will become just another story. Ishi's blood boiled. She looked at Vivek, who was silently watching the masked man. Suddenly, Vivek threw the knife with full force. It hit the masked man directly, and the device fell to the ground. The masked man screamed in pain, and his two companions raised their guns, moving toward Ishita. But before they could do anything, an attack came from outside the warehouse. Gunfire erupted. Amid the sounds and explosions, within just a few minutes, the two companions of the masked man fell to the ground. The masked man tried to escape, but Vivek leapt and caught him. Ishita stepped forward and removed his mask, and in front of her was a familiar face, Rajendra Singh, a retired dig and Jisyan's former senior. Ishita's face showed both disbelief and anger. Rajendra smiled lightly. Ishita, both you and Ayan were so stubborn. I had warned him, but neither of you would stop. Ayan bent down to pick up the device lying on the ground, but Ishita immediately kicked it away. At that moment, Vivek looked around and said, "Ma'am, now the time has come." He took a small pendant out of his pocket. Ishita's breath caught. It was the pendant she'd given Ayan on their first anniversary. Ishita's mind exploded with realization. "Vivek, you are Ayan." Vivek, that is, Ayan, slowly nodded. "Yes, I am Ayan. That night in the warehouse I survived. But I knew if I came forward, they would target you. So I staged my death and continued tracking the racket as Shadow. I came to you in Vivek's form to keep you safe." Ishi's tears flowed as she embraced Ayan with trembling hands. "Why did you leave me alone? I saw you die every day." Ayan looked into her eyes. "I never wanted to lose you, Ishita. But now we are together." Meanwhile, Rajendra's team had secured the scene. The data from the device exposed the entire racket. Several high-profile businessmen and police officers were arrested. Ayan, Ishita, and the team brought the information to the authorities, and the racket was completely dismantled. Months later, Ishita and Ayan were back at the old bungalow together. Ishita had resigned from her SP post, and together they had established an NGO spreading awareness against corruption and crime. One morning, sitting in the garden of the bungalow, Ishita handed Ayan a cup of tea and smiled. "Your tea still touches my heart,"